Welcome to another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to help you unpack something I think we've all struggled with at some point, to-do lists.
Oh, yeah.
You know that feeling, right? The one where your to-do list just keeps growing and growing and you feel like you're constantly drowning in tasks.
Yes.
What if I told you that our obsession with doing it all could actually be the very thing that's sabotaging our productivity?
Interesting.
So we're diving into an article called The Truth About To-Do Lists, and it's going to make you think twice about how you approach your tasks.
It really does challenge the conventional wisdom about to-do lists.
Right.
You know, we tend to believe that if we just write down every single thing we need to get done, we'll magically be more productive.
Right.
But this article suggests that might be a recipe for just feeling overwhelmed and ultimately getting less done.
Okay, so let's unpack this idea a bit more. The article talks about the trap of complete control, this illusion that to-do lists give us. What does that actually mean?
Well, it's like we trick ourselves into thinking we're in control just because we've captured every task on a list. But the reality is that list can quickly become a source of stress and anxiety, leading to something called task paralysis.
Okay.
Have you ever stared at your to-do list,
Yeah.
feeling completely frozen and unable to decide where to even begin?
Oh, absolutely. I've definitely been there. Sometimes I just end up scrolling through social media instead of actually tackling anything on my list.
Right.
It's like my brain just short circuits when faced with too many options.
That's a classic example of what the article refers to as decision fatigue.
Oh, okay.
Every item on your list represents a decision you need to make. When to do it, how to do it, and what to prioritize. And the longer your list gets, the more decisions you have to make, and eventually your brain just gets exhausted.
Yeah.
It's like trying to pick a movie on Netflix.
Yeah.
You spend so much time scrolling through options that you end up just watching something you've already seen a million times.
That's such a great analogy.
Right?
And it's so true. Sometimes having too many choices can be paralyzing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on top of decision fatigue, there's also the psychological burden of those unfinished tasks.
Right.
The article dives into this phenomenon called the Zeigarnik effect, which basically means our brains are wired to remember unfinished tasks.
So it's like those tasks are constantly nagging at us in the back of our minds, even when we're trying to relax or focus on something else.
Precisely.
That.
It's like having a mental pop-up ad that keeps flashing. You forgot to do this.
Oh, no wonder we feel so stressed all the time.
Right.
So to recap what we've learned so far, long to-do lists can create this illusion of control, leading to decision fatigue and the mental burden of unfinished tasks.
Yeah.
But the article doesn't just stop there. It also talks about how important tasks can actually get buried when we try to capture everything on our list. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Absolutely. Think about it this way. You have this massive to-do list with everything from clean the bathroom to write that important report.
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in checking off the easier, less important tasks simply because they're quicker to complete. And because those smaller tasks are taking up your time and energy, the truly important ones get pushed aside.
It's like that saying, the urgent often crowds out the important. We end up feeling busy, but not actually accomplishing what truly matters.
Exactly. We might feel a sense of accomplishment from checking off a bunch of small items, but at the end of the day, we haven't moved the needle on our bigger goals.
Okay, so we've established that maybe our traditional approach to to-do lists isn't serving us as well as we thought.
Yeah.
But don't worry, the article doesn't just leave us with a bunch of problems and no solutions. It actually offers some really intriguing alternatives.
It does. It starts with a pretty radical idea, embracing strategic incompletion.
Strategic incompletion. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this.
It's about shifting our mindset from trying to do everything to focusing on doing the things that will have the biggest impact.
Okay.
It's about being okay with not finishing every single thing on our list and instead prioritizing the tasks that truly move us closer to our goals.
So instead of starting your day feeling overwhelmed by a mountain of tasks, you would choose one or two key things that, if completed, would make a significant difference.
Exactly. It's about being strategic with your time and energy.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But what about all those other tasks that we're deliberately choosing not to do?
Right.
How do we deal with the guilt or the feeling that we're letting things fall through the cracks?
That's where the concept of mindful abandonment comes in.
Mindful abandonment. It sounds almost rebellious. I love it.
The idea is to regularly review your to-do list and consciously decide to let go of tasks that are no longer aligned with your goals or values.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that saying no to certain tasks, even those we've already written down, can actually be a powerful act of self-care and productivity.
So it's about being intentional with our time and energy rather than just reacting to whatever's on our list.
Precisely. And this leads us to another key concept. The article explores designing your day, not just your list.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Tell me more about this designing your day approach.
It's about recognizing that we don't have the same energy levels or focus throughout the day. Instead of blindly following a list, we should structure our days around our natural rhythms and work with our energy, not against it.
So, for example, if you're a morning person, you might schedule your most demanding tasks for the morning when you're most alert and focused.
Right.
And if you tend to hit a slump in the afternoon, you might schedule less demanding tasks for that time.
Exactly. You're working with your natural energy patterns instead of trying to power through when you're feeling drained.
Yeah.
It's a much more sustainable and ultimately more productive approach.
This is all starting to make so much sense. It's like we've been approaching to-do lists all wrong.
The article really challenges the conventional wisdom, doesn't it? It's not about just doing more. It's about doing the right things at the right times.
I love that. So we've talked about embracing strategic incompletion, practicing mindful abandonment, and designing our days instead of just our lists. But how do we put these ideas into practice? How do we actually create a system that works for us?
Well, the article suggests starting with purpose.
Okay.
At the beginning of each week, you identify your top objectives for the week. These become your guiding stars for making decisions about how you spend your time.
So instead of just reacting to whatever pops up in my inbox or on my to-do list,
Right.
I take some time to think about what I really want to accomplish this week and let that guide my actions.
Exactly. It's about being proactive rather than reactive.
I like that. And it ties into the idea of strategic incompletion we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
It's easier to let go of tasks that don't align with those bigger objectives.
Right. It gives you a framework for deciding what to prioritize and what to let go of.
The article also mentions the 2-minute rule and how we should use it wisely.
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit, I'm guilty of using that rule as an excuse to procrastinate on bigger tasks.
It's a common trap. We think we're being productive by getting those little things out of the way.
Right.
But sometimes we're just delaying the inevitable.
So how do we use the 2-minute rule effectively?
It's about being strategic.
Yeah.
Think about whether that 2-minute task is truly contributing to your goals or if it's just a distraction.
Yeah.
If it's something that aligns with your objectives, then go for it.
Yeah.
But if it's just busy work, maybe it's better to let it go.
So responding to a quick email that's important for a project might be a good use of the 2-minute rule.
Right.
But organizing my desk when I should be working on a presentation probably isn't.
Precisely. And finally, the article emphasizes the importance of building in review time.
This is something I struggle with. I tend to just keep adding things to my to-do list without ever taking a step back to see what's actually on there.
It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day whirlwind.
Right.
But it's crucial to schedule regular time to review your task list.
When you say review, you don't just mean checking things off, right?
No, it's more than that.
Okay.
It's about asking yourself some key questions. Are these tasks still relevant? Do they still align with my goals? And perhaps most importantly, am I willing to let go of the ones that no longer serve me?
So it's about being honest with ourselves and recognizing that sometimes the most productive thing we can do is to hit the delete button.
Absolutely. It's about taking control of our to-do lists rather than letting them control us.
This is all so eye-opening. It's like I'm finally understanding what it really means to be productive.
It's a shift in perspective, isn't it?
It is.
And the article reminds us that truly productive people aren't necessarily the ones who get the most things done. They're the ones who consistently do the most important things well.
So it's not about quantity, it's about quality and intentionality.
Exactly. It's about making conscious choices about how we spend our time and energy and focusing on the things that truly matter to us.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I'm starting to see my to-do list in a whole new light.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And I think the key takeaway here is that productivity isn't about achieving inbox zero or checking off every single item on our list.
Right.
It's about being intentional with our time and energy and focusing on what truly moves us forward.
And ultimately, it's about defining what success means to us on our own terms.
Beautifully said.
Now that we've explored these strategies for a more intentional approach to to-do lists, I'm curious about the deeper implications of this shift.
Okay.
What does it really require of us on a personal level?
That's a great question, and I think it goes beyond just changing our to-do list habits. It requires a deeper level of self-awareness and a willingness to challenge some deeply ingrained beliefs.
Like the belief that we have to be constantly busy to be valuable.
Exactly. Or the belief that our worth is tied to our productivity.
It's like we've been conditioned to believe that we always need to be doing more.
And the article challenges us to question those beliefs.
Yeah.
It encourages us to embrace a more mindful and intentional approach to our work and our lives.
So it's not just about being more efficient, it's about being more present and connected to our values.
Precisely. It's about making choices that are in alignment with our authentic selves.
I love that. So how do we cultivate these qualities that support a more strategic and mindful approach to productivity?
Well, the article highlights the importance of developing certain qualities: courage, wisdom, discipline, and flexibility.
Okay, let's break those down a bit. What does courage look like in this context?
It's the courage to say no to tasks that don't align with our goals, even when there's pressure to say yes.
Yay.
It's about having the confidence to prioritize our own well-being and our most important work.
And what about wisdom?
Wisdom is the ability to discern what truly matters to us. It's about seeing the bigger picture and making choices that are in alignment with our values and our long-term goals.
And discipline, I imagine that's crucial for staying focused on those priorities.
Absolutely. Discipline is the ability to stay committed to our goals, even when we face distractions or setbacks.
Yeah.
It's about having the willpower to resist the temptation to get sidetracked by urgent but unimportant tasks.
And finally, flexibility. Why is flexibility important in this context?
Because life is unpredictable. Things change, plans get disrupted, and we need to be able to adapt without getting derailed.
Yeah.
Flexibility allows us to adjust our approach as needed while still staying focused on what matters most.
So it's not about being rigid or following a strict set of rules. It's about being adaptable and responsive to the ever-changing circumstances of our lives.
Exactly. It's about finding a balance between structure and flexibility.
This has been such a rich and insightful conversation. I feel like I'm starting to understand the true meaning of productivity.
Me too. And I think it's a journey, not a destination.
So it's okay if we're not perfect at this right away.
Absolutely. The article encourages us to be patient with ourselves as we learn to prioritize and focus on what truly matters.
What stands out to you as the most important point from this deep dive?
What's fascinating to me is the idea that sometimes the most productive thing we can do is to let go of the need to do it all. It's a powerful reminder that our worth isn't tied to our ability to complete every task on our list.
I completely agree. So let's bring this back to our listeners. How can they apply these insights to their own lives?
Well, I think the first step is to simply become aware of the trap of trying to do it all. Notice how often you feel overwhelmed by your to-do list and start to question whether every task on that list is truly necessary.
And then maybe experiment with some of the strategies we discussed today. Start by identifying your top objectives for the week and see if that helps you make more intentional decisions about how you spend your time.
And remember, it's okay to abandon tasks that no longer serve you.
Right.
It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress towards what truly matters to you.
I love that. So instead of asking, did I complete everything on my list? Maybe the question should be, did I move forward on what truly matters?
Yeah, that's a much more empowering question, don't you think?
Absolutely. And it brings us to another important point from the article. If productivity is about doing what matters most, how do we even define what actually matters to us?
That's a question we each need to answer for ourselves. There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
But I think it starts with understanding our values.
Okay.
What's important to us? What do we want to contribute to the world?
So it's about looking beyond just getting things done and thinking about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this in the first place?
Exactly. It's about aligning our actions with our values and our vision for our lives.
That makes sense. So how can we practically apply this to our to-do lists?
Well, one approach is to evaluate each task through the lens of our values.
Okay.
Ask yourself, does this task align with what's important to me? Does it contribute to my bigger goals? If not, maybe it's time to consider letting it go.
So it's not just about efficiency. It's about purpose.
Precisely. It's about making choices that reflect who we are and what we stand for.
I love that. It's like we're giving ourselves permission to focus on what truly matters and let go of the rest.
Exactly. And in doing so, we create space for the things that bring us joy and fulfillment.
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening. It's given me a whole new perspective on productivity and how to approach my to-do list.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I think the key takeaway here is that we have more control over our time and energy than we often realize.
We don't have to be slaves to our to-do lists. We can choose to focus on what truly matters and create a system that supports our goals and our well-being.
Exactly. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. Be patient with yourself. Experiment with different strategies and find what works best for you.
So to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to take what you've learned from this deep dive and apply it to your own lives. Start by identifying your top objectives for the week, practice mindful abandonment, and design your day around your energy levels.
And most importantly, remember that true productivity isn't about doing it all. It's about doing what matters most.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the truth about to-do lists. We hope you found it insightful and empowering.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep focusing on what truly matters.